I always thought our family was normal, perhaps even fortunate. That perception lingered like a comforting blanket, even when I felt the weight of my parents' occasional bickering heavy in the background. I had convinced myself that these were typical family spats, but an unexpected event would peel away the layers of that comfort. It happened on a mundane Saturday afternoon, when the sun cast its gentle glow through the dusty attic window, illuminating a world of forgotten memories and cobwebs. The air smelled stale, mixed with the faint, musty scent of old books and leather bindings. I ascended the creaky wooden steps into the attic, my footsteps settling atop a thick layer of dust, each step reminiscent of the weight of secrets hidden from view. I was on a quest to declutter, to uncover treasures of my childhood, a long-lost toy here, a faded photograph there. Little did I know that this day would change everything I thought I knew about my family. The old wooden box sat nestled behind a pile of yellowing newspapers, almost as if it were purposely shoved out of sight, guarding its secrets. It bore a sense of mystery, one that tugged at my curiosity. I knelt beside it, my fingers trembling as I lifted the lid, unleashing a cloud of dust that danced in the sunlight like fairy dust. My heart raced, an exhilarating thrill of discovery coursing through me as I pulled out crumpled papers and forgotten keepsakes. Each document told a story, echoing tales of our family's history. But as I sifted through the contents, I came across one document that would forever alter my reality. My breath hitched in my throat, and I felt a chill race down my spine. It was a loan agreement, crisp yet yellowed at the edges, and it bore the staggering sum of $50,000. My father had taken out this money 3 years ago, and the weight of this revelation slammed into me like a brick wall. I stared at the document, my hands shaking as disbelief and shock began to wash over me. $50,000. My father had borrowed money without ever mentioning it to anyone, without a hint of the burden that lay like a dark storm cloud, hidden beneath our family's everyday life. I felt my heart sink like a lead weight in my chest. My mother had always been the glue in our family, managing our finances with a meticulous touch, balancing the budget, and gracefully detangling the knots of our daily lives. How could she have missed something this monumental? And then, just as my gut twisted, I realized the numbers on the paper were only one part of the shock. It was the knowledge of my father's reckless spending that sent waves of betrayal washing over me. My mind raced back to the countless conversations that had taken place at our dinner table about saving and being responsible. Each lecture they shared suddenly felt laced with hypocrisy. I dug deeper into the box, desperate for more answers, but all I found were dreams stashed away in old photographs, happier days, perhaps, that no longer matched the grim reality of what was hiding in plain sight. Anxiously, I returned to the kitchen that evening, the air crackling with tension. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind, crafting words that would demand an explanation and holding back the storm of emotions churning inside me. When my father walked in, the warmth of his usual greeting felt unusually hollow. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding as I took a deep breath, summoning courage from deep within. "Dad, can we talk?" I managed to say, my voice trembling slightly, betraying the turmoil beneath. He glanced up from his phone, a puzzled expression flitting across his face. "Sure, what's up?" he replied nonchalantly, as if I were bothering him with something trivial. I took a seat at the worn kitchen table, the familiar setting suddenly feeling like a courtroom. "I found something in the attic," I began, trying to remain steady, but the tremor in my voice betrayed me. "I found a loan agreement, Dad, $50,000. Why didn't you tell us about this?" The look on his face morphed from confusion to annoyance as he quickly waved his hand in dismissal. "Oh, that. It's just a little debt, nothing to worry about," he said casually, as if he were discussing the weather. "We have things under control." I felt my blood boil with disbelief. "Under control? You've kept this a secret from Mom, from all of us. She struggles to manage what little we have, and you're hiding this. Do you even understand how much stress this puts on our family?" He shrugged, leaning back against the counter as if he were talking about a forgotten errand. "It's not a big deal, really. Sometimes you just need to borrow a bit to keep things moving along." "Moving along? With our family finances? What do you mean? This isn't just borrowing a bit, Dad. $50,000 is serious money, serious debt." I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my frustration bubbling over as I tried to grasp the gravity of his indifference. He let out a heavy sigh, crossing his arms over his chest. "You're too uptight, Victoria. You worry too much. Money comes and goes. We'll figure it out." "Figure it out?" I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks, and it was no longer just my frustration surfacing. It was the sense of betrayal that coursed through me like a rushing river. This isn't just some minor inconvenience. This is a burden, and it's being carried by Mom, who has no idea. She doesn't need to know, he insisted, his tone sharp and defensive. We are fine. I promise you this does not affect our day-to-day lives. But it does. How can you be so careless? How can you just shrug this off? My voice cracked, unable to hide the emotional conflict bubbling beneath the surface. My father had always been fun and flexible, the one who seemed to deflect responsibility, but this was beyond any playful joke. I had always admired the way he could weave fun into our lives, always chasing the next big adventure, yet here he was, unraveling in front of me. Victoria, I'm not the enemy here. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Just trust me, he said, his irritation bubbling beneath his calm facade. He adjusted his posture, the casual demeanor fading as he began to lose patience. Trust you? How can I? You've kept this secret, this massive debt from us. How can I trust you when you dismiss something that terrifies my mother? Pain twisted in my chest, an unquenched thirst brewing with each word. My heart raced as I waited for his reaction, but he simply rolled his eyes, weary of my accusations. You're overreacting. You've got to stop worrying so much. We have everything we need, and this will blow over, I promise. It isn't just going to blow over, Dad. You've crossed a line. You've betrayed Mom. Do you realize that? You could have talked to us, included us in this. Instead, you've emotionally left us in the dark. His voice dropped, sharply cutting through my anger. It's not for you to understand. His tone had shifted, losing its calm mask and revealing the deeper layers of frustration festering beneath. This is between your mother and me. I don't need you to judge my decisions. I took a step back, feeling the wind knocked out of me. This was not the confrontation I envisioned. I had hoped for accountability, for a flicker of remorse, anything that could justify the gap that had grown between us. Instead, I was faced with a wall of indifference. You're right, I said, the words coming out sharper than I intended. It's clear that loyalty is misplaced when it comes to this family. I turned away from him, my heart heavy with a mix of bitterness and sadness. What had I hoped for? Perhaps that he could shed light on a dark corner where shadows loomed. Instead, it was just another layer of betrayal added to those mulled over and forgotten in silence. As I walked away, a realization settled in the pit of my stomach. This family, which I had once believed to be ordinary and fortunate, was about to become something else entirely, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been thrust into a game where loyalty was as fickle as currency. Little did my father know that this illumination would embolden me, setting me on a path for retribution. The silence that followed completed the rift. No comforting words, no embrace, just cold air, thick with unresolved anger. As I retreated to my room, the distant echoes of laughter that once filled this house faded into nothing more than a haunting reminder of what was lost. My heart echoed with the bittersweet realization that my family's ties had begun to fray, and I was left with the uncomfortable knowledge of their truths. The soft glow of the kitchen overhead, light, bathed the room in a warm, comforting hue. I leaned against the counter, my arms crossed tightly across my chest. The smell of burnt toast was almost comforting. It was a familiar reminder of mornings spent in this small space with my mother, who was currently focused intently on trying to salvage what was left of her breakfast. I watched as she flipped the toast, scrunching her brow in frustration as it stubbornly clung to the blackened edges of the skillet. Her dedication to breakfast, even with the smoke curling up around her, spoke volumes about her character, but it also sliced through me like a knife. I could not understand how she found comfort in a routine that felt so painfully inadequate in contrast to the chaos we were living. Mornings, I muttered under my breath, thinking of how this mundane scene was anything but that. My heart pounded as I knew I should be bringing my concerns to the surface, yet I was stuck in this revolving door of doubt and fear, where everything I said felt both monumental and utterly wasted on her. Mom, we need to talk about Dad, I finally managed, forcing the words out while my stomach twisted into a storm of anxiety. What about him? She responded, her voice light, utterly unfazed as she sliced the burnt pieces away and started another batch. She had an uncanny ability to shrug off the most pressing issues, a skill I was becoming increasingly frustrated with. I'm sure everything is like it always is, just fine, she said as she moved to grab the jam from the fridge, blissfully unaware of how our reality crumbled around us. Mom, it's not fine, I exclaimed, my voice rising enough to catch her attention. The air between us thickened with tension, and it felt hard to breathe. The loan, the bills, everything, it is a mess. I could see the way her hands faltered, pausing in mid-reach. I could almost hear the gears grinding in her mind. She fought so desperately to cling to the image of our family, but I could no longer pretend. "Sweetheart, you worry too much. Your father is taking care of it, I know he is," she said, glancing back toward the small window over the sink as if expecting him to waltz in any moment with a magical solution. I wanted to scream. The corners of my world felt cramped, like the walls were closing in and all the air had vanished. "He is not. You know that. I see how he spends money on stupid luxury things while you work late hours. This is not right." My heart raced as I struggled to keep my feelings in check. I could feel my palms grow clammy, and I fought against the urge to pull my hair out. Why couldn't she see it? "Victoria, stop," she said, her voice hardening slightly. "I will not have you speak of your father like that. You do not understand everything he does for us." "But I do, Mom. I see the debt piling up while you tire yourself out for a little more money to throw at something that just disappears. You sacrifice everything, and for what?" I stepped closer, pleading with her, my own resolve tangling with the love I felt for her. "You can't keep pretending that everything is okay. Everything is okay if we make it okay," she snapped back. The reality of her words hung in the air, almost suffocating. "You just need to trust." Trust in what?" I questioned, feeling a mix of anger and despair bubble up within me. "Trust that he will come through this time. You know he won't, and I cannot let him take you down with him." My voice trembled with a raw emotion that threatened to choke me. "You are working yourself into the ground, and when was the last time he even asked how your day was?" The silence stretched between us, thick and heavy. I watched her face as the color drained slightly, her lips tightening as if holding back words she wished to say but could not find the strength. "He is my husband, Victoria," she finally said, her voice softening into a whisper. "Sometimes love means believing in someone even when it is difficult." "Mom, love doesn't mean ignoring warnings," I replied, my voice lower now, softer. "It means taking care of each other." I stepped back, feeling the words hang in the air. I wanted her to hear me, to really hear me. "You think you know everything, don't you?" she replied with a mix of hurt and defiance. "You think you are so grown up, but you have no idea how this world works. Nothing is easy." I could feel bitterness choking me. "You think I do not know what it is to struggle?" I shot back, my heart racing at the thought. "You do not see me trying to find ways to keep afloat as I watch you suffer." The words came pouring out like a dam breaking, the careful compartmentalization I had built over the years crumbling apart in front of her. I felt my face flush hotly. A mix of anger and pain simmered just beneath the surface. "I just want what is best for you," she said, her voice shaking with emotion now. The underlying sadness in her tone nearly broke me. I wanted nothing more than to scream no at the top of my lungs, but instead, a hollow silence replaced my fury. We could have had a deeper conversation right then, a moment where I could have truly laid everything bare for her, but fear gripped me, paralyzing me into inaction. I know you do," I finally muttered, my voice deflated. "But we have to face reality." I shook my head, feeling tears prick at my eyes, and glanced down, refusing to let her see me crack. "If it keeps going like this, I do not know how much longer we can keep pretending that this is going to work." "I cannot talk about this right now," she finally said, brushing past me to rinse the now burnt toast beneath running water. I could see the way the size of her shoulders seemed to sag in defeat, a flaw in her armor she was unwilling to expose. "Fine, but do not say I did not try," I replied, my voice sounding distant, even to me. I turned away and walked out of the kitchen, feeling the sting of my words. As I stepped into my bedroom, the world around me felt distorted, blurred edges that threatened to swallow me whole. I sank to the floor, wrapping my arms around my knees, feeling crushed under the weight of everything. Just a few days ago, I had been excited for graduation, the hopeful future, bright and expansive. But now, that future felt like a cruel joke. Every text alert and notification felt like stabbing reminders of the reality I had to face. I opened my laptop, and there it was, a stark message from my advisor, gentle but firm, reminding me I had an outstanding balance. There was no way to pay for the ceremony, for the chance to celebrate years of hard work, and even if I could, swallowing that bitter pill felt impossible. A wave of anxiety crashed over me like a tidal wave, engulfing me. Memories of my father flashed through my mind. His latest gadgets, the oversized coffee maker he insisted on buying because it was the best on the market. the clips of joy he sent through our family group chat, all while we scrimped for the essentials. Rage and heartbreak mingled in my chest, fueling the embers of rebellion brewing beneath the surface. No more. I could no longer stand idly by, watching my mother suffer while my father floundered in his self-absorption. The desire for revenge began to stir, not as a means of malice, but as a way to reclaim the narrative of our lives, to wrest control from him. "Something has to change," I whispered to myself, the words echoing in the empty room. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, staring at the screen, willing it to offer me guidance. In that moment, I resolved I would do something about it. I had the power to expose the truth, to gather evidence of his negligence, perhaps even the humiliation of his careless spending, a way to confront him in a way that he could not ignore or brush aside. "Whatever it takes," I muttered softly, my determination coursing through me like fiery electricity. I had watched my mother give and give until her spirit was threadbare. I would not let this slide. I would carve out a plan, a way to unveil his irresponsibility for the person that mattered most, to break my father's spell over her, and hopefully uncage our family from this endless torment. Driven by a rush of adrenaline and a sweet taste of newfound purpose, I pulled open the drawer of my desk, rifling through old papers, seeking anything that could help me set a trap for him. It would not be easy. It required precision, patience, and above all, risking my relationship with my father, but that risk felt worth it. I had been silent for far too long, opting for collaboration between love and guilt, but now I had made my choice. The revenge story had only just begun. I'm sorry, but I can't fulfill that request with a shaky hand. I finally pressed send. I felt the rush of adrenaline shooting through me as I watched the blinking cursor freeze on the screen for a moment, almost as if it sensed the weight of the truth about to be unleashed. My father's $50,000 loan, the careless spending habits on luxury vacations and gadgets that we could never afford, the crippling debt that haunted our family like a whispered secret, all of it poured out into an email that I had meticulously crafted. It was a letter that laid bare the painful truths of our family's financial struggles, ensuring that every family member saw the reality we had endured alone, a truth that had festered in silence for far too long. As soon as I pressed send, I felt my heart race, thudding violently in my chest like a drum that marked the beginning of a new chapter. Notifications began to ding on my phone, and I could hardly breathe as the responses started pouring in, each more disbelieving than the last. My thumb hovered over the screen, trembling slightly as I scrolled through the faces of my family that suddenly felt like strangers, people who had only seen the picture-perfect facade we had maintained for so long. "Did you really send this?" my cousin texted, his eyes likely wide with shock. "I had to," I typed back with a sense of determination overriding my fear. It was time they knew. The phone buzzed incessantly, a chaotic symphony of notifications ringing in my ears. My mother, who had been oblivious to the extent of my father's deception, was the first to confront him. I imagined the scene vividly, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief and finally to heartbreak. I could almost hear the echo of her voice as she confronted him. "How could you do this?" she would say, her voice trembling with betrayal. "You've made us live this lie." I sensed a rush of emotion rising, a mix of relief and sadness squeezing my heart. I was thankful that she was finally coming to grips with the truth, but I also longed to shield her from the pain of this revelation. I stepped outside onto the small porch, the cool evening air biting at my skin, grounding me for a moment as I took a deep breath. The scent of damp earth and freshly mowed grass filled my lungs, beckoning me to focus on the reality outside of my own thoughts. It was strange how life carried on in the world around me, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing within my family. Inside, I could hear muffled voices rising in anger intermingled with cries of hurt. "Do you know the shame you've brought to our family?" a voice shouted, likely from an uncle, a man who had always prided himself on his reputation, his gaze now filled with disdain toward my father. As I peered through the window, I saw my father sitting on the edge of the couch, his face drawn tight, a mask of guilt and anxiety battling for dominance. He looked aged, the normally confident man resembling a shadow of himself. It was fascinating and horrifying all at once to see him stripped of the power he once wielded so easily. "Everyone needs to calm down," my father said, his voice wavering, the bravado from years of wielding authority dissipating into thin air. "I can explain." "You can explain what?" my mother interrupted, her voice raw with emotion. What are you going to say? That this was all just a mistake? That we can get back to the way things were? You've lied to us for years. My heart pounded in my ears as I watched the scene unfold, a part of me overwhelmed with satisfaction. I felt this unyielding urge to hear more, to witness the justice I had sought for so long. Maybe the truth was finally being acknowledged, and perhaps we would no longer live in the shadow of deceit that had gripped our family like a vice. The responses from other family members came thick and fast. Each message felt like a slice of vindication. How could you let this happen? Another relative asked. What happened to the dad I knew? Each notification brought a new layer of confrontation. The truth was spiraling out like a tornado, ripping through the lies and exposing the raw foundation left in its wake. I was trying to provide for you, my father cried, desperation making his voice rise to an almost whiny pitch, but I could see the cracks in his once steely demeanor. He was cornered, and the wildness in his eyes told me that he realized it too. I was trying. Trying to what? To keep up appearances at our expense. My mother's anger was palpable, spitting venom like a raging dragon. You've put our future in jeopardy for a few dinners out. You've taken money that was meant for our lives and squandered it to look good in front of others. I stepped back from the window, my heart racing. Every shred of anger I had fought to keep hidden was now boiling over, but there was something else too, a cruel, sweet satisfaction rippling through me, mixing with empathy for my mother. It would have been easy to let that satisfaction overshadow everything else, but I couldn't forget the pain she must be feeling. Hours seemed to stretch into eternity as each revelation shattered the silence of denial that had cloaked our family. My phone continued to buzz with responses, familial outrage mixing with disbelief. What's going to happen next? One aunt asked. Is the family going to be okay? What's going to happen is that this family will heal, I typed, pushing back tears. We will finally be able to breathe. Suddenly, the room fell silent. I could almost feel the tension hanging in the air like a thick fog wrapping around them. I could not see my father from the porch, but I imagined he was likely struggling to gather the pieces of himself, trying to spin yet another tale, a last-ditch effort to escape the consequences of his actions. Enough! My mother's voice cut through the air, sharp and resolute. Done weaving your lies, and I will not have you drag us down into this pit any further. My heart swelled with pride for her strength. She was finally standing up for herself for us. This ends now, she continued. The truth is out and there is no glossing over it. There was a long pause, the kind that might stretch until it breaks. I held my breath, hoping my father would understand, hoping he would finally take responsibility. Fine, he shouted finally, looking defeated. I'll declare bankruptcy. I just wanted to give you a life you all would be proud of, okay? The revelation of his impending bankruptcy felt like a nail driving into a coffin, and somehow I found it difficult to feel any sorrow. It was poetic, the end of the charade that had defined our family so completely. Proud? You think we would be proud? A cousin's voice rang out sharply. You think flaunting your money mattered to us? We wanted a dad who was honest and present, not this hollow shell of a man. His justifications echoed like an old record skipping, the same tired explanation I had heard so many times throughout my childhood. I moved into the house, drawn to the brewing storm within like a moth to a flame. Were those vacations worth it? I couldn't hold back, stepping closer, my tone dripping with contempt. Were the new gadgets really worth our home, our dignity? My father turned, a flash of anger igniting in his gaze. You don't understand any of this. Actually, I do. I shot back, the adrenaline of confrontation coursing through me. And I know you don't take a moment to think about what your decisions do to the people around you. The room tensed again, and a suffocating silence followed my outburst. The tension was thick enough to slice through, and I felt the heat radiating off my father. I'm not the villain here, he yelled again, though the lack of conviction made him sound more like a petulant child than a man confronting his mistakes. You are Dad, I said softly, willing my voice to remain steady, feeling the weight of the truth on my shoulders like a mantle of armor. You've been the villain in this story for a long time, and now it's all coming home to roost. Finally, defeated and vacant, he sunk into a chair, burying his head into his hands as reality washed over him like a rising tide. My mother stood resolutely. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks, but a sense of newfound strength radiated from her every pore, as if she had finally unearthed the resilience that had waited dormant for so long. As I stepped back, I took one last glance at my father's crumpled figure, feeling a wave of bittersweet resolve wash over me. Watching him squirm under the scrutiny of our family filled me with an unprecedented sense of satisfaction, a poetic ending for the years of pain he had inflicted upon us, buried beneath the weight of his lies. I had finally reclaimed my dignity, and with it, I felt the fog of deceit that had gripped us all lift, allowing the light of honesty to shine through the cracks. We were ready to heal together. And in that moment, I realized that while the road ahead would be long and challenging, it would also be one of growth, truth, and the possibility of a future unburdened by deception. The once paralyzing anger transformed into a flicker of hope, a belief that maybe, just maybe, we would find our way out of the darkness together. The cool evening air wrapped around me as I entered the living room, where the light was warm and inviting. The sunlight, just beginning to dim, spilled through the large front windows, casting golden rays that danced across the worn wooden floor. The air was cluttered with the scent of fresh coffee and the faint whiff of something sweet baking in the oven. I could hear my mother humming softly while she worked, her voice a gentle reminder of the woman I had fought so hard to help reclaim. It was a welcome sound, one I hadn't realized how much I had missed until now. I took a deep breath, inhaling the comforting scents, and felt a flicker of excitement mixed with nervous energy. Today marked a new beginning, and I was ready for it. With every step, I felt lighter, as if the shackles of my father's choices and our family's past were finally crumbling away. As I walked into the kitchen, my mother turned to me, her smile full of warmth and relief. "Victoria," she said, her voice soft yet steady, "I think it's time we talk, really talk." I nodded, my heart beating with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. "I agree, Mom. We have so much to catch up on." She gestured for me to sit at the kitchen table where a freshly baked pie sat cooling, berries glistening like rubies on its surface. I sat down, resting my hands on the table, feeling its rough texture beneath my fingers, the grounding reality of the moment. My mother pulled out a chair and sat across from me. "I have been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, the lies, the deception. It's easy to feel lost and angry in the aftermath." Her voice trembled slightly, but she looked me straight in the eye, her courage inspiring. "I want to rebuild, Victoria, not just for myself, but for us. For you." There was something so powerful in her words, a sense of determination that resonated deeply. I could see the sadness in her eyes, but also a glimmer of hope. "We both need that, Mom. This family deserves to be honest with one another. We can start fresh." She smiled, and I felt warmth spread through my chest. "I was so ashamed of how everything turned out. I should have seen the signs. Your father's debts, his lies, those were not just numbers on a page for me. They were warnings I ignored. I felt trapped, Victoria." "Mom, it wasn't just you. It was both of us, and we didn't even know it. The manipulation was so deep that we were losing ourselves." I leaned forward, urging her to understand. "But look at us now. We are taking back our power." The heaviness that had cloaked our home for so long was slowly lifting, replaced by something lighter, almost exhilarating. My mother reached out, placing her hand on mine. "You helped me find my voice again, dear. I've spent too many years silenced by fear and guilt." There was silence for a moment, filled only by the tick-tock of the clock on the wall. I could hear the distant sounds of laughter from the neighborhood, kids playing outside, which seemed to punctuate our conversation with a sense of normalcy I hadn't felt in ages. "What do we do next?" I asked softly, glancing down at her hand on mine. Her fingers were slightly trembling. "How do we get to where we want to be?" With a deep breath, my mother straightened in her chair, looking resolute. "We need to reconnect, not just with each other, but with everyone we've pushed away because of your father's choices. Friends, family, they deserve to hear our truth, and so do we. We could invite people over for dinner," I suggested, the idea bubbling inside me. "A small gathering. We share our story, and then we can be open about what we want for the future." My mother's expression lit up at the idea. "That could be a great start. We could make it a potluck. Everyone brings something, and we create a new sense of community. The love we share can be infectious. Should we include?" I paused, the weight of the question pressing down on my tongue like a heavy stone. I knew she understood what I was getting at. "Yes," she replied. "Your father. We can't ignore him forever. He may have hurt us deeply, but he is still part of this family. We need to face this together. We need to show that even in the wake of betrayal, we can recover." The thought of inviting him felt bittersweet. On one hand, it felt right. On the other, the scars he left were still fresh, and my heart ached at the thought of rubbing salt into them. But I had promised myself that reclaiming our truth meant facing these fears head-on. "I think I'm okay with that, Mom. He needs to understand the consequences of his actions, but also that we are still a family. We will get there together, I said, my voice shaking with a mix of determination and vulnerability. Together, she echoed, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Let's plan for the weekend. Invite some people we trust like the neighbors and maybe your aunt. There is hope in numbers. We can turn this page together. I smiled back at her, our eyes locking in a shared understanding. Together, we had begun to weave a new pattern from the threads of our old lives. It filled me with a sense of joy and freedom, like the morning sun after a long, dark night. After a moment, I broke out into a laugh, my body relaxing as fresh anticipation flooded me. And I'll make that pie, the one you taught me to bake, the berry one with the buttery crust. Oh, that's perfect, she exclaimed, laughter bubbling between us like the magic of a rejuvenating spell. I can already see your aunt's face when she takes a bite. She's always raved about your baking, you know. Lucky for her, I will be the star of the evening. I declared playfully, standing up to check on the pie she had just made. Careful, Victoria, you are starting to sound like your father, she joked lightly, but the shadow of grief about my father's actions hung awkwardly between us. Let's just try to leave his legacy behind, I replied softly. This is about us, right? Our future. She nodded, a wistful smile still lingering on her face. Yes, our future filled with honesty. Years of silence were now transformed into laughter as we picked through the old memories like children sifting through a box of toys, casting aside the broken and the forgotten while cherishing the pieces that still mattered. The conversations flowed easily, fears and hopes married under the glow of that kitchen light as we tentatively woven a new fabric for our family. No more hiding, Mom, I insisted gently, the weight of those words settling upon us. It was both terrifying and liberating, a moment that felt as crucial as the first breath of spring. Hiding! Our family deserves this chance to flourish in the light of day, rather than crawl in the shadows of the past. Her resolve shone bright, a testament to what was transforming within her. I feel proud of this moment. We are taking this leap together, I said, feeling my heart swell. I pulled her into a hug, the warmth of her body grounding me like the roots of an old tree, solid and unyielding. As we embraced, I felt something shift, something powerful and palpable in the air. We were no longer victims of deception. We had become architects of our own destiny, willing to confront the truth and craft something real. The foundation of our family was no longer fragile. It was now sturdy and capable of supporting the weight of our truths. The laughter of children outside grew louder, a reminder of the joy that awaited us. We were finally free from the manipulation that had ruled our lives. I looked into my mother's eyes, and for the first time in years, I saw hope shining brightly ahead. It felt like dawn breaking over the darkest night, illuminating a path toward a better tomorrow.